Hello again, and welcome to SCLC TV. I'm your host, Maynard Eaton, and of course, joined by our president and CEO, Dr. Charles Steele Jr. Dr. Steele, this week, a presidential debate between President Trump and incumbent, the gentleman who wants to take his job. But I'm told, and you heard as well, that there was a confrontation about the president failing to condemn white supremacists, so-called group called the Proud Boys. President Trump said for them to stand back and stand by. What did you make of that, sir? What is this supremacy group in a presidential race?
Well, first of all, I think it was a subliminal type of warning in terms of the code language of the president being very obvious about racism. I think this is his hook. This is his focus point. It's no different than George Wallace when he proclaimed himself as a segregationist, segregation now and segregation forever, an attack upon people of color, particularly black folks, Negroes at the time. And it's no different than what that debate was about and the significance of the president doing and saying what he said.
There are those who have suggested in the media that this may have been the worst presidential debate in U.S. history. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think it was very belittling in terms of the scenario or the actual impact of what it had upon the citizenry of America. And I asked the question, how did we get to this point in our society, in this country? But it's always been a conspiracy, man. Just like any other sports event. He said he had fun, you know. He really enjoyed doing what he did. But when you're boxing or if you're playing football, basketball, baseball, or soccer, you always look for the weaknesses of your opponent. And the weaknesses of America in regards to what our current president is bringing to the table is a lack of collaboration. How many times have you heard me say that? The collaboration among our people of color, among our people of ethnicity, of all backgrounds. We have to have collaboration. We don't have it. Status quo is in the past in terms of what the vision of this president is trying to portray. He's trying to say that the status quo of people being presidential, the structure of politeness and the gentleman aspect of respectability is no longer needed. That's why we are where we are. We, the people, caused this problem.
One commentator, newsman, suggested that this Trump-Biden brawl, he called it, is a cold civil war. Comparing this to a civil war. Are we in that? Are things that bad, Dr. Steele? Civil war?
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It just takes people going to the polls, going out to vote the right vote. As you know, I don't endorse candidates, but you know when I talk about the right thing and what you do, you know what I'm talking about. But the point being is that people have to go to the polls and vote respectfully and significantly for the fabric and the historicity of this country to move forward for the right candidate. This is the American way. And I can't help but go back to Doc Rivers, the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, who said, we have loved this country for many of years. This country got to show us some love now.
Well, Doc Rivers is now the ex-coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, but the comments still ring true. Speaking of voting, our group, our organization, headed by your wife, called SCLC Votes, every Monday at 1 p.m., talking about the value, the need for Black folks, people of the right spirit to go out and vote because we need to go to the polls. Is that correct?
That's correct. You have to go to the polls. It's a necessity. It's imperative that we go to the polls. This is something that we must do. But after going to the polls, we have other responsibilities. And that's just like saying, God, to our supreme being. God bless the United States of America. Bless the whole world. After you vote, you still have other concerns. You have to hold folks accountable. You have to bring about the implementation of the issues and bringing them forefront in terms of people who are less fortunate than others. We are not talking about the poor community, and that's all of us now. You know, it's no difference in being poor and related to being middle class. We all in the same boat now. We all are poor. It's no middle gap. It's no middle class. You might be in the middle, but it has nothing to do with no class. You must talk about the poorness and the lack of support for those who are less fortunate.
It really is the haves and the have-nots in America, is it not? Many rich folks are getting richer. Poor folks, middle-class folks are getting worse. It's almost like a cat.
My Lord, can you imagine how many people who have already rich and gotten richer during the COVID-19? There's so many African Americans and people of color and poor people who are trying to get contracts doing with the products of COVID-19. And it's just nothing but rhetoric, people running their mouths, not giving African Americans and people of color any opportunities to bring about the entrepreneurship ability in doing this particular crisis. Behind every crisis, there's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to start a business in COVID-19. You need various components and structural type of products that need to be provided, and not just during COVID, even when this too shall come to pass. We are not getting the contracts. The rich folks are getting richer.
Not just still, as you well know, many corporations, many folks across the country have embraced or cheered on the so-called Black Lives Matter movement. But isn't much of that just rhetoric? And isn't there a pushback now ongoing against that?
Absolutely. First of all, it's Black Lives Matter as well as all lives matter. We understand that. But Black Lives Matter has always been attacked upon. First of all, you got to understand the structure of Black Lives Matter. What's the meaning of Black Lives Matter in terms of its creation and the origination of Black Lives Matter? Where did it come from? It didn't come from African Americans. It was initiated through other aspects of ethnicity and background of people. But it's a beautiful concept. But don't bring up a concept if you're not going to implement and have the implementation or the fulfillment of living in what you and your rhetoric and what you are saying.
Speaking of voting, something just happened in Atlanta's 5th District this week. You remember Leon Hall? He was a celebrated SCLC foot soldier. Well, his son, former Atlanta City Councilman Kwanzaa Hall, came in first place finish in the 5th District special election. Your thoughts about that and what a Kwanzaa Hall might bring to the 5th District where SCLC headquarters is located?
Let's tell the whole story. First of all, whoever wins the 5th District in terms of the special election, that was created and announced and implemented by the governor, Governor Kemp. Now, the Democratic Party of Georgia nominated a young lady to be on the ballot, who was also the chair of the Democratic Party, who would be on the ballot in opposition to a young lady who's African-American descent, that was pardoned by President Trump for the general election, November 3rd. Now, that has nothing to do with the special election. Very, very ridiculously implemented in my perception, without me being a supportive component of anyone running for this election, even though the historical aspect of Leon Hall with Kwanzaa Hall, as well as our friend, former President Robert Franklin, in a runoff. But the state senator, Williams, who's originally from Alabama and a graduate of Talladega College, in terms of Miss Williams getting the nod from the Democratic Party to be on the ballot. And that would be in the general election, which would give her the upper hand because it's a Democratic district. And if and when she is elected, running against a Republican who was pardoned by none other than the current president, which means that whoever wins a special election in terms of Congressman John Lewis C. will only have a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to serve. When the young lady who's a state senator, in terms of Senator Williams, whom I know and respect, doesn't have really an opponent in terms of her being elected to the 5th district of the congressman seat. So it's very complicated. Many folks don't realize what's going on, but the special election is only for 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, when the general election, which the Democratic Party put the state senator on the ballot, would be for 2 years. Very confusing, isn't it?
So what are you saying, sir? Is this a political trick? You think it's unfair? That others should be on that ballot other than Senator Williams? There are those who believe this was a setup.
Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see what is taking place, Mr. Eden. And you're the best at throwing a curveball. But I like that. But I have to say, it's very, very unlikely that you will have anyone serving in a capacity for 2 years and not educating the people on the process. That's all I'm saying. The people are not well educated on the process.
Well, people are also not well educated in Louisville, Georgia either, it seems, because this weekend you traveled to Louisville, Georgia, where a slave market still exists. Talk about that, please, before we go to some of the things you have to say. Why were you there?
Well, first of all, our SCLC chapter there in Jefferson County, Georgia, in Louisville, Georgia, invited me to lead a march in the possibility and the realization of a slave market that's existing, that shouldn't be existing in terms of most of the African Americans who reside there in Louisville, Georgia. And we led that march. And hopefully you will see some of the footage of that march during this program as well. But we led that march, and the people are very unhappy about the fact that the city council voted to rescind and remove the slave market from Louisville, downtown Louisville. And there's still some ramification of political jargon where the state government must get involved in order to further approve the abolishment of the slave market.
Louisville, Georgia, you got to expand your base. I'm going to fight for you over the slave market.
I know you are.
But it's bigger than the slave market. I didn't come here just to fight on no slave market. It's a little town called Asheville, North Carolina. What did something you need to add to the slave market? What did Asheville, North Carolina do 2 or 3 months ago? Anybody know? Huh? They gave reparations to black folks. Woo! You need to, you need to ask for reparations from Louisville.
That's right.
It ain't big enough just to talk about the slave market. We want some money to go in business. That's where I'm coming from. You remove this slave market, you still broke. A broke Negro with nothing and no respect. You better come on with the real stuff. That's what the system don't want you to do. They don't want you to go into entrepreneurship and own your own business. How many black folks own business downtown? Is that one? Is that one? Oh, she on the bank? He on the bank?
No, down level. It's called another level.
Okay. It's always a devil at another level. So as I close, I'm finished.
Thank you, Doc. Come on.
I want to endorse removing the slave market. But I ain't here for that.
All right.
It's bigger than that.
It's bigger than this.
I want to remove that,
Yes.
and I want to offer the city to put it in a museum. It belongs in a museum. And the history needs to be told about it.
That's right.
But not out here in the public to intimidate people.
That's right. That's a good answer.
What you need to do
Tell us, Dr.
is to add to your issue with the slave market and bring about some money market. You need some money market.
Right, Doctor.
This city can invest in the black community and create black ownership, black entrepreneurship. But it's going to take courage.
President Steele, on a personal note, for you and your wife, this coming weekend is going to be quite an affair for your family. Your daughter, Charla, is getting married to Desmond Moore. It's costing you a lot, but I know it means a lot to you. Your youngest daughter getting married.
Absolutely. This is my baby girl. And thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Eden. And I talked to Charlotte today. She's on her way from New Orleans. As you know, she's been teaching in the last 7-8 years in the metropolis of Atlanta, Georgia. And she called me and said, Dad, I'm on my way. And I told her, I said, Charlotte, it just hit me. I'm not giving you away. I'm loaning you. I can't give my children away. And she started laughing. She said, Daddy, I know when you walk me down that aisle, you're going to have tears coming from your eyes. I said, you got that right. But we're very blessed. Desmond is a principal in New Orleans, fine young man. And I'm happy to say I will have 2 great son-in-laws. My first one is a great man in his own right. Lakeisha has been married to Cleveland Ray for 15 years. And I'm very excited as well as being elated in terms of my second son-in-law that's going to be a member of our family.
Dr. Steele, have you passed along your civil rights activism to your children? Are they, I know they hear you and see you every day, but are they working with you as well?
That's a good question. As you know, Lakeisha has been working with me for many of years in terms of my civil rights endeavors and responsibilities, as well as you know, Maynard, she's been working with you for many of years. Yes. Keisha has done a great job, and thank you for accepting her and also teaching her in the journalistic aspect of what she does and working with you, man. You all are both in the broadcasting and journalistic field, and you're very accepting to my daughter and train her along the way. And now, not long ago, she said, tell Mr. E, I can stand on my own now. So you've been very, very helpful to my daughter in the journalistic field, and I thank you for that, as well as PR. But to answer your question, I passed that along to both of them. I said, hey, do you think you'll be a leader in the civil rights movement at some point? Not just with SCLC, to be transparent in terms of what I do and passing it along, but do your own thing and create an opportunity, because we always going to need the civil rights movement. And my oldest daughter, Keisha, looked at me and said, Daddy, 2 bigger shoes to fill. I'll be supportive. So that was the answer that she gave me.
Well, it is time for the next generation to replace us or work alongside us, as we're seeing during this Black Lives Matter episode. Listen, again, we want to remind you that SCLC Votes comes on 1 p.m. Mondays live. We're talking about the value of voting. Insane Ufat will be our guest this coming Monday. Yes, Dr. Steele.
Before you close, I'd like to have a send out to a good friend of yours that you don't know, who always compliment you, and as well as myself, Mr. Jeffrey Martin, who's the young man who lives in South Carolina. And he's originally from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, my hometown. But he always complimented you how you held this program in your questioning and bringing about the significance of what we are doing in the struggle. And I just want to give him a holler because he always talk about Mr. E.
Well, everybody always talks about you, sir. That's why you're a leader. Thank you again for this SCLC TV show. See you Monday with SCLC Votes. I'm Maynard Eaton.